Welcome back, True Seeker. Ever since I left for New York, there's just been a lot of things happening around me that are blowing my mind more and more each day with regards to the organic side of the code. And it almost feels like it's a cheesy movie at this point, the level of synchronicity. And it's funny, there's a movie out there called Crash about synchronicity, and I'm about to tell you the latest story in my life involving car crashes and a synchronicity. And before I even get into this, again, the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I've told this story many times, my summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college, my parents had just gotten divorced while I was in school as a freshman. My mom was home alone. She had a contractor working on the house. He turned out to be a weird guy. She felt scared by him. He had a key to the house because he was working inside the house. She wanted me to come home, change the locks so that this guy couldn't get in the house. And I ended up driving straight back from Phoenix to Portland in the middle of the night after my mom called me because I couldn't sleep. And, I slept when I got there. I woke up, and the first thing I did was drove to the store to go get the locks. And on the way to go get the locks, I was at a three-way intersection. I guess it's a four-way intersection because the other part of the intersection goes into a store parking lot. But it's not a fast road. It's a 25, 30 mile per hour road. This Mercedes Benz was just hauling ass at probably going at least 60 miles per hour down the road. So I just stayed stopped watching him drive by because I knew he was going to blow the intersection. And he ended up slamming on the brakes, and he swerved his car as he hit the brakes, and he ended up crashing into the front of my car. I was parked this way watching him come by like this. He ends up crashing into me. It was crazy. And I just watched it all. And I still remember in slow motion his big, bright red hair and his face coming at mine. He was driving a Mercedes. I was in a Honda Civic. And he stayed in his car, and I called my mom up. Cell phones were a newer thing back then. This is like the year, it's probably 2002. It's 2002. And I told my mom, I said, come down to this intersection. I said, a car just hit me, and I just want you to come take some photos. Back then, the cell phone didn't have a camera on it. I said, just to document the accident. I was parked at the light, and the guy was flying and just hit the brakes and swerved and crashed into me. So my mom shows up, and this guy gets out of his car and starts screaming, "What the F are you doing here, Donna?" And again, that's my mom's name. And I'm thinking, how does this guy who just crashed into me know who my mom is? Well, lo and behold, this is the guy who's the contractor, who's the reason I just drove back from Arizona to change the locks. And I mean, tens of thousands of people live in this town. The odds of this guy crashing into me, that the same contractor she's worried about, it was just too weird. My mind was so blown. And I started to wonder, I was like, was he on the way to do something to my mom? Did I get there just in time? Like, what in the world? The guy said that he just had a fight with his girlfriend, and that's why he was all out of his mind. But that was a car crash thing, right? And that was always the weirdest thing that ever happened to me. The second weirdest thing that ever happened to me is probably captured on a YouTube video where back in 2016, I was explaining why Trump was going to be the president to divide the nation because he's so polarizing. People are either love him or hate him. And then the light bulb turned on its own in the room. It was so weird. That never happened before. And all the times I made a video in that room. But now, arguably, somewhere in the top three, the new weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, and I feel like there's actually a few that came out of this New York trip that arguably belong on the list. Include, if you missed the video I did on GematriaEffectNews 24 about the father-son tandem that came out and the synchronicity. Again, I told this story last week that the man with the next to the 201 bus, him and his son were at the football game that day, and the team they were playing came on the 201 bus, and they're like, we got to go see Zach today. We can't miss this New York trip. This is a sign. So they're coming out on a sign. But anyway, I end up making a video about, how this father-son tandem touched me and how on the way home driving, talking to the father after I had the weird car thing happen by Yale, just the synchronicity with him telling the story about his mother and then me making the joke about my mom and the lawnmower. And then I get home and the lawnmower won't. If you guys missed this story, I told this story last week, right? So here's what gets really weird about this week. So the father calls me on Thursday and says, Zach, I just had the weirdest thing happen. I just got smashed in an intersection, T-boned. And, they're saying it's a miracle that I'm walking away unscathed based on how damaged the car is. And I didn't have my seatbelt on. And he drives a Civic too. Just Civic, like a lot like the one that I got in the accident back in 2002. And Anyway, he gets smashed in an accident on the 22nd, and he said that was the first ever car accident he's been in his whole life, and he's 49 years old. And what's weird is in Gematria, crash equals 49, the most simple way, 22 with numerology. And his birthday's Valentine's Day. It was 220 days after his birthday. So that was already weird, right? That he gets in a car crash. Like I told you guys last week, he was calling me the whole way I was driving home to make sure I was safe after having the weird car thing at Yale. If you guys don't know about that, it's a few stories to get caught up on from the road trip. But he kept calling to make sure I was awake, alert at the wheel, driving safe, telling me stories about his mom, how much he misses his mom, how I got to be nicer to my mom. And, after I get back, he ends up getting in a car accident on the 22nd, right? He's there with us on 9/11. We're teaching people about the significance 11, the master number, these rituals. He gets in a car crash. So that was weird enough, right? So my dad calls me up because I talk to my dad every Sunday. And he's like, "Man, I had a funky week." And I said, "Well," so he told me my dad has a hernia right now. And then on Thursday, he was stopped at a light, and a car came flying up at a stopped at a light. And my dad drives a bus, a bus. He's never been hit in all these years driving the bus. He's been driving the bus for a long time now. It's been over 10 years he's been driving the bus. But a car smashed into my dad while stopped at the intersection, and he was just blown away. And he said it caught him off guard because his work was talking to him through the computer screen. Again, they're not allowed to have any screens, but they do have a screen in the bus that's the person orchestrating all the calls and the pickups. And he drives the type of bus where you go pick up the elderly people, not like the one that keeps going around on the route, but the one that picks up elderly people, takes them to the doctor's appointment, the store. But he gets crashed into on the 22nd, right? And my dad said that's only the second time he's been hit. And the last time it was the same thing. He got rear-ended at a red light. And I said, "Can you remember what day it was you got hit?" He goes, "Well, it was January of 98." And he goes, "I can't remember the exact day, but," he goes, "I remember Utah and the Blazers were playing." And I said, "It's funny that you remember it was Utah versus the Blazers," because I said in Gematria, Utah equals 22 like crash. So I go back and look at the date, right? The date of this Blazers Utah Jazz game from 98. It turns out it was January 16th, a Friday. And again, that day can be written 16/1. Well, the name Gematria of the gentleman who's the father in this picture up here, his name, Yasid Moreno, has Gematria of 161, which is like the golden ratio, a special number, a number that, the ancient mathematicians thought had this really special quality. 161, phi, the golden ratio, 1.61, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just like, what is going on, man? I'm talking about father, son. I'm talking about him with my mother. I made a joke about my mom and how she's always complaining about the guy who mows her lawn. And that's because I wasn't picking up her call while I was talking to him. And he was telling me I should take my mother's call. And then I get home and my own lawnmower doesn't work. I'm just like, my mind is getting blown, you guys. I'm just like, I've always known there's an organic side. If you haven't read my books, again, both of my books, the last chapter is about the organic side of the code. And the reason I talk about it is because, again, again, the belief in Kabbalah is that God created the world through numbers, letters, and words. And sacred geometry believes that God works through geometry. Let me show you what else is weird about, again, my father and Yasid, who's the father of his son Malik, who both had accidents on the exact same day this week, the 22nd. And by the way, I'm not sure what time Yasid's wreck happened. I know he said it was in the morning time too. My dad said the time of his wreck was just before 10:30. He said he thinks it was like between 10:25 and 10:30. Because he, at first he was just kind of caught off guard by how hard he got hit, and then he wasn't expecting the crash because he was pulled over and parked. That's the thing. Somebody crashed into him while he was pulled over and parked, getting the assignment for the next pickup. But, and then actually another weird part is the guy who crashed into him was trying to get to the hospital in a rush without his wallet because he was having a gout flare up. And of course, we recently had Adam on who lost his kidneys and is having gout. And that's a whole nother thing. But I'm just going, oh my goodness. And then I'm not even telling you guys about the weirdest synchronicity of all. The house that sweet lady's so in love with that we're probably going to end up moving to, you would never believe what house number it is. I'm not even going to say, but I bet your first guess in your mind will be the right number. It's just like, what is going on in the world? Again, the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? That phrase came somewhere, just like the Kabbalistic belief of God operates through numbers, letters, and words. But hold on, I got to show you this too. Here's what's wild. Here's what's wild about this. Again, remember from Manly P. Hall, I originally only learned these two ciphers, the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Again, gematria means geometry in language. Geometry in language. My dad's birthday is the 108th day of the year, April 18th. He loves baseball, like the 108 double stitches on a baseball. Remember, Major League's also 108 and 45. But geometry, 108, and with numerology, 45. Well, what day is Yasid's birthday? Valentine's Day, the 45th day of the year. Remember how I had that very accurate prediction for Bitcoin involving 45? Again, the founder of Bitcoin, he's Mr. 45. Bitcoin's 45. 45 weeks after his 45th birthday was the 45th day of the year, Valentine's. We said Bitcoin would be worth at least 45,000 by that point. Said it was actually worth 50,000, but it made a huge climb from when we said that. And like I told you, after that is like eventually I think this thing will go back down, but now's a good time. But anyway, gematria means geometry and language. My father, this father, right? He's telling me, Zach, you got to be so good to your parents while you still got them. It's just all this is so weird. It's just too weird. And then again, his mother's name is Maria. My mom's name is not Mary, which is the English version of Maria, but she has the same birthday as the Virgin Mary. Um, there's so many other things I want to tell you, but there's just so many synchronicities going on right now. I'm like, it's just overwhelming. It's going to take time from now for me to look back and understand why so many things happened at the time we did this New York trip. But again, the what I feel about it is like creator is trying to shed more light and make me realize that yeah, there is a lot of manipulation going on, but there's we got to focus even more on this organic side and how the organic side is being manipulated by these psychopaths, like the rituals on 9/11, a national emergency totally forced on 911, where two towers became zero before it became one. Again, the Queen just died 911 days after the pandemic was declared and 201 days after her COVID diagnosis when 201 was the event 201 simulation. Anyway, this thing has just got my mind so blown, you guys. And it's just like, again, the young man in the picture, the son, he wears the number 14 in tribute to his father, who used to wear 14 when he was semi-pro, but he likes the number 23. And when I was walking on the streets with the father and son when we were in New York, his son was telling me, he's like, Zach, I understand this manifesting thing. I understand perseverance. I'm going to make 2023 my year. I'm going places in 2023. He has a lot of doubters, this young man. You know, he had trouble in school at some place, but now he's in the right school. He's successful. He's doing well on the football team. Next year is going to be his big year, age 18. He says 23 is going to be my year. You guys, it was amazing. You know, there's a lot of people in New York, but all of a sudden, right after he says it, here comes a guy out of the swarm of the crowd of the New York City street in a white Jordan jersey with the red lettering with the number 23. Right after the kid says 23 is going to be my year. You know, and there's just so many synchronicities on this trip, but they're not stopping. It's like they're coming faster and furious. I just want to encourage everybody to drive safe. It's like, I don't even know what the meaning of this is, but it's like, it'll take time to reflect on it. But again, it's a reminder. There's a reason. There's a reason that there's this whole letters and numbers thing. And how much of it is, you know, the organic matrix. Again, just our language, spells, spelling, magic. Remember in the NFL the other year, the weirdest thing we ever saw in the game where Joe Theismann was in attendance, 33 years to the day of him snapping his leg on the same hash mark, it happens to Alex Smith. 33 years to the day. And it happened on the 322nd day of the year, 322, that number associated with the ancient mystery religions, the Kabbalistic tree of life, 3 pillars, 22 pass. J.J. Watt, born March 22nd on top of Alex Smith with the busted leg. Then when Devin Booker busts his nose in the playoffs, the clock stopped right at 322. And it was the day Jerry Colangelo's wife, the owner of the Suns, the wife of the owner, was sitting on the sidelines with a T-shirt of Steve Nash with a busted nose from a Suns game in the past. And then it happens to their star player, Devin Booker, who next thing you know, he's got to put on the mask while everybody's being asked to wear masks in the year that Phoenix did the, what they call it? They called it something 201 to revamp the Suns arena that year that they went to the finals. And remember, we thought that they were going to be in the Western Conference Finals that year before the season began. And it made sense that they went to the finals. We had the different LA team versus the Suns in the preseason for the Western Conference Finals. It ended up being Clippers and Suns instead of Lakers and Suns. But it was all ritualistic. But again, just these numbers, the way sometimes it manifests, it's just like, how? How? And again, there's a reason the secret societies have etched on their building, all is number. Here, you want to know how? Here's what else is weird that my dad pointed out when I was talking out to this. He goes, I just thought of something else. He said, the last time I got in a car accident, when I was listening to the basketball game back in 98, I was on the address 117th Street and Southeast Mill Plain Boulevard. So 117th and Southeast. When he got hit on the 22nd, or just this past week, he said the address was 117th and Southeast Division Boulevard. So again, it was the same number cross street and Southeast. And I don't know where 117 fits in right now. I mean, I'll have to look at it. But one other thing, remember when Kobe died? He died 157 days from his birthday, and his dad's nickname, Jelly Beans 157. Kobe Bryant's 157. The word accidents 157. The movie poster, the phrase on the Nike movie poster with him and Kanye West and Bruce Willis that has the exploding helicopter, the caption, whatever it said, like, if you lose this game, you don't go home, or whatever it said, equaled 157. Well, I noticed that from my dad's birthday to the day of his accident was 157 days later. I thought, how weird is that too? Accident 157. 157 is the 37th prime. Portland equals 37, where he got in the accident. It's just like, okay. That there really is something, spiritual soul Illuminati. He just put out the video today on his brother's death. And again, he said he was supposed to go out yesterday on his mom's birthday, but it went out today. Remember, his brother died 38 days from his birthday. Death is 38 forwards, 97 in reverse. Now he speaks about it on the day, leaving 97 days left in the year. Again, they play the NBA Y2K game. They got famous that way. His brother dies right when the tournament begins for NBA Y2K in a car crash. Again, we see that the patterns are just so perfect, so consistently with so many of these rituals, and a lot of them definitely are manipulated. I mean, Tom Brady's NFL career, Patriots, Patriot Act. But again, there is an organic side to this. And some people think everything's organic. Some people think it's just all the Matrix that's doing all of this. Anything is possible. But again, I don't feel like the Matrix made 9/11 happen on 9/11. I don't think the Matrix made a lot of things that have happened in our lifetime that have been blamed on false reasons that have drastically changed quality of life for the people of the world. I don't feel like this stuff's been organic at all. Highly manipulated. But again, if there is a power like Hermeticism teaches to manipulating energy and frequencies and all shapes and symbols and sounds and numbers and letters, and again, the only way these things could ever be understood fully enough to use them is over a long time, brilliant people, a lot of people paying attention, collecting data and information. But this is what we're trying to do as a community. We're trying to understand what's really going on in the world and how. And again, the more you study this stuff, the more it seems that there is definitely something to the teachings of Kabbalah where there's a relationship with letters and numbers and words. And again, it doesn't say mold your life around this or worship this or make this your practice, but there's something about just having the knowledge and being able to observe. It's like, maybe they're right. Maybe Creator does speak to you in this way. This is the way Creator knows how to communicate with his creation. Again, but since you guys also want the rigged NFL, again, just week after week, the perfect number patterns. Almost all my callers wanted to argue with me last night. Sometimes I get suspicious when I have 5, 6, 7, 8 callers call in and try to go against my opinion that I feel strongly about, but I felt strongly about the Packers winning this game. And the reason why is, again, the most pure cipher, you guys, Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the dark blue one. This number plays so hard, 62 in Tampa. It plays so hard. And whenever I doubt it, like I've doubted it in the past. Sometimes there's big upsets and you're just like, okay, it's there, but God, is this really going to happen again? That any given Sunday NFL marketing? I've just learned not to doubt it. It just comes through again and again. But Aaron Rodgers got his 62nd road win today. And remember, once upon a time, we didn't know reverse gematria. So I didn't know that Buccaneers had a connection to 62, but it's just running the alphabetic order in reverse numerology. And again, when they won the Super Bowl, it was 62 days after the mayor's birthday. And in the most pure cipher, Rosh Hashanah is 57. Today is Rosh Hashanah. And I'm always talking about 57 in Rosh Hashanah. Rodgers got his 62nd road win of his career, but he also got his 57th road win of the regular season. So he has +5 more when you add his playoff wins from his career. So 57 in the regular season, 62. I liked both those things. That's why I liked Rodgers to win today. And he did win. And you had to like how the game had a chance to be tied up at 14-14 with 14 seconds left, but it stayed on 12 in the battle of number 12s. And again, a few years back on SNF, Sunday Night Football, which is 12, just like how Tom is 12 in that cipher, but Aaron is not, it's 22. On SNF, again, this is on JHW3D's channel. He archived it, but they gave the numerology lesson, the Sunday Night Football broadcast on 12, on the Battle of 12s, Aaron versus Tom. And we said, well, Tom's 12. He's winning this one. And sure enough, he did. 12. You guys, you don't want to be skipping out on Gematria. And that year that Brady won, where he went through Rodgers in the NFC, remember that game had everything to do with 26. Now you get a 26-point game again. Remember the word game is 26, like God, like man made on the 26th verse of the Bible. And it's Adam, which equals 26. But okay, that was the game of the week. Really like the Packers. Bears and Texans, I thought this game was very dangerous. I recommended to stay away, but I said if you play it, I just barely favor the Bears. That was just barely correct. And ultimately, the one thing that put the Bears over the top was getting to 2-0 at home when Texans is 20, and Kyler Murray getting to 3-4 at home when Texans in reverse is 34. Again, that's why you got to know it forwards and backwards, because you can just see when it overlaps like that, it'll give you a little more encouragement. Lovie Smith had a good riddle too, but QBs are normally better than coaches. And again, 2-0 at home, and 3-4 at home for the new Bears starting quarterback, Justin Fields. The Titans gave, again, that most pure cipher, you guys. If you can only have one cipher, it's the dark blue one. And notice, Nashville is 39, and Nashville, Tennessee is 73. Derek Carr picked up his 39th road regular season loss and 73rd all-time loss in Nashville, Tennessee. There was a few other things that made sense. Titans got it done. Colts and Chiefs. I missed whatever the riddle was here. I didn't see any good alignment for this particular game, but had Mahomes won today, it would have lined him up to get the 62 next week against Tampa Bay. So I said, remember, if Mahomes wins today, he has the nice 62 against Brady next week, but now that's not going to line up. So we'll have to look at that game more carefully. It will be interesting when Mahomes gets his 62nd one. We'll have to pay attention to that, because in the most pure cipher, his name is also 62. That's going to be a big number this year, because Queen in the most simple cipher is 62. Anyway, she died the day they opened the NFL season, and the Queen City Buffalo won. Again, we like the Dolphins to win today. Tua got to 10-3 at home in the 103rd NFL season, where 103 is highly attached to the Bills. Miami's 27 in the most pure cipher. Josh Allen got his 27th loss today all-time, and his 25th regular season loss on the Super 25 date. Again, it's the 25th of the month, the day leaving 97 days left near the 25th prime. And the Bills also got their 27th loss in week 3 in Miami. So that made a lot of sense. I want to say there was one other thing that made sense for Miami as well, but there was a number of things that made me think, yeah, I think Miami's got this upset. And they got it done. Kirk Cousins, he got his 61st win today and 37th home win in the most pure cipher. Detroit is 37 to go with the home wins, and Detroit Lions is 61 to go with his 61st win. So that's why I favored Cousins over the Lions. Ravens and Patriots, this one was tricky. This was a dangerous game. After we finished the stream last night, I said I'd go back and check from the last matchup to the current matchup for all these teams, because sometimes the big clue's there. The last time the Ravens and Patriots played was 97 weeks earlier. Harbaugh came in on 97 losses on the day, leaving 97 days left of the year against Bill Belichick, who equals 97, and he stayed on 97 losses. Again, 97 is the 25th prime, Ravens 25. What made it tricky, though, is both Patriots and New England Patriots equal 98, and he could have picked up the 98th loss. So a little bit dangerous there. Ravens did prevail. Joe Burrow screwed me the last 2 weeks because he had a good riddle to win last week and lost, and he had a good riddle to lose this week and won. So I'm going to be careful with the Bengals games, and that's how it is with his knowledge. You'll hit on the majority, and where you start having trouble with a certain team in a season, you got to pay attention, because it's like they're on some different type of algorithm, if you will. And here's what it was. Last week, Burrow could have got his 13th road win in Dallas. He lost, so he did not get 13, and 13 plays very well in Dallas. And the Jets are always dangerous to take because they're a team that loses the majority of games. So you have to recognize that. There's some teams that even like when they have good riddles, that they're not meant to win. They're meant to have the really lousy seasons. So you got to fade them. But Burrow could have got his 9th road loss this week against the Jets. And instead, the Jets stayed on 9 points most of the game and lost the game. And anyway, again, it's not a perfect science, but you learn this knowledge, you win a lot more. We liked Rivera to get his 22nd loss with Washington this week. Always a killer number with the Eagles. Eagles 22 in the most pure cipher. He did. And we liked Baker Mayfield to get his first win with the Panthers, getting his 19th home win of his career over the 19 team, the Saints. Saints 19. You notice how I'm just going through this one dark cipher. Again, you guys, you pay for the Patreon, you support the work, you invest in important knowledge that can change the world, and you win. But the other thing is I drop free videos like this all the time too, where I'm telling you the same thing. If you want to learn this yourself, focus on this cipher. This cipher's the biggest winner week in and week out. And again, pay attention because you'll see how the same numbers hit with teams over and over. It's not an accident that Sean Payton, the coach of the Saints at the time, was the first NFL employee with COVID-19 on the 19 team, just like it's not an accident that Mayfield gets his 19th win today. Now, the question is somehow all of this being organized by the Matrix? I mean, if that's true, still within this Matrix, there's Agent Smiths, and we know who they are. They are these Jesuits. Again, that's why all the rituals are still synced up and aligned with them. We're on their calendar. We're speaking their language. It's like it's possible that they've taken this energy and this knowledge and they've built the world in this way, and it makes things favor their outcomes. It could be that way. But again, I still think there's a large degree of manipulation. And you know what? I told people that the Jaguars were worth a small parlay, like the type of $5 bet where you put them in with some of your other lock value games. Like I really loved the Miami upset, the Rodgers upset. If you put the Jaguars, the Bucks to lose to the Packers and the Bills to lose to Miami, if you had that on a ticket, and you could have even stuck some other games on there. But again, you can easily turn a $5 bill into upwards of $100. And the reason the Jaguars had a narrative to beat the Chargers was because they became 7-7 on the road in week 3. And the Jaguars in the most simple cipher is 77. And that number plays a lot with that team. And, I mentioned, Clemson had a great riddle this weekend. Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. Maybe it's the time where we see a changing of the guard for Trevor Lawrence and he emerges into that quarterback that he was expected to be. He had a big win last week against the Colts, big win on the road against the Chargers, who were seen as a good team. But 7-7 they became in week 3 on the road. And I didn't have normally I'm very confident in the Jaguars in 77. It's just they've been losing so many games lately. So sometimes you got to wait and feel, or if you're going to bet on it, again, like I advised, do a small parlay and try to get the big payout and put it with some of the other games that look real solid this weekend. And again, you guys, and the Rams. We like the Rams because Kyler Murray got his 15th loss. Again, in that most pure cipher. Guess what Rams equals in the most pure cipher and letting Murray get his 15th loss? Rams 15, right? Just leading with that most pure cipher. Notice there's 4 base ciphers, right? Alphabetic order with the rules numerology, reverse alphabetic order with the rules numerology. The ciphers on the left, the dark green, the dark blue, the alphabetic order, not the reverse. They're much more consistent, but especially the dark blue one. So, again, I get so tired of people being like, oh, Zach's so great. I've been teaching you guys the dopest knowledge on Patreon for free for 5 years. Had you guys all stop to listen, you'd be way ahead in this world. You wouldn't be fooled. You wouldn't be deceived. You'd have better understanding of what's going on in the world. And, again, a lot of this does have to do with energy harvesting, and that's why they love to do what they do with these crowds and these exciting games. The Falcons and Seahawks. Yeah, there were riddles going both ways in this one. I was worried about the Falcons upsetting and making both teams 1-2 because they're the 12th man and they're teams with history. Recently, Dan Quinn was the Seahawks assistant, and then he became the Falcons coach. And then he lost to Brady in the Super Bowl like Pete Carroll and the Seahawks at the goal line. So there were some narratives going both ways. I was leaning a little bit more towards the Seahawks in this one because you see how Atlanta's 15? Had Geno Smith won today, he would have got his 15th career win. And it's, by the way, Geno Smith is 47, right? This is the Seahawks' 47th season. The city on the 47th parallel. 47 is the 15th prime. He kept Russell Wilson on 47 road wins in the Seahawks opener this year. Russell Wilson did not get that 48th win, like how he won Super Bowl 48 with the Seahawks over the Broncos. Again, in Wilson's debut game with the Denver Broncos, his new team, he plays his career team, the Seattle Seahawks, comes in with 47 road wins in their 47th season and stays on it versus Geno Smith. He picked up his 33rd road loss that night, and he was the first quarterback to win the Super Bowl on the 33rd day of the year. And of course, MNF in the most simple cipher is 33. There were 33 points in the game. Notice how MNF is 48 in reverse. So is Seahawks, who won Super Bowl 48 over the Broncos. But again, Russell Wilson goes to the losing team and ends up staying on 47 versus Geno Smith. So had Smith won today, the other thing that was tricky is he would have become 11-9 at home as a starter, and Falcons also has that 119. And that's why you never bet more than you can afford to lose, and you just stay consistent with the knowledge. You'll win more games than you'll lose, but there are games that'll make you pull out your hair and make you go, man, why didn't that one come through? What went wrong there? You know? But again, you played all the games we like this week. You hit on a lot of upsets, and you hit on a lot more games than you lost on. And that's what we've done through the first 3 weeks of the season. And that's what we aim to do every week. And some weeks are better than others. But again, you stay consistent. You don't get greedy, and you keep building. And for people who continue to lose because they keep making too many teams on their parlays and they don't know a good game to just do a straight bet on. I mean, there's some veterans in the community who continue to leave comments like, man, I lost on one game today. I almost had it. It's like that guy who's leaving that comment week after week, who's been around all these years. It's like, you got to learn how to bet, man. You got to learn how to bet or just stop betting. Again, it just, yeah. You shouldn't be losing week after week when you're hitting the majority of games. And on some games, you can get a good read on the over, under, or the spread because sometimes a number stacks very heavily. But again, you can ignore over, unders, and spreads if you have the right winners and just stack a few games on a parlay, especially when they're dogs. So whatever it is, you guys. And again, I maintain that things are being manipulated because the psychopaths who rule this world, they're about this stuff and they want to play like they're God over humanity. So they're behaving like creator. But you can see that there's more to this than just manipulation. Again, for people who are new here, I've said this a million times, but if you look up what's the coldest day ever recorded, you say, what's the coldest day ever recorded? It'll come up. It'll say July 21st, 1983, and you can see the temperature was negative 89 Celsius. And why does that matter? Well, that just happens to be the exact same day I was born. And again, once upon a time, I thought this stuff sounded pretty silly, but then I started to look into it. And again, my full name is Zachary Keith Hubbard, which equals 89, right? My dad's full name is Timothy Stephen Hubbard. He spells it this way with a V, which is 89. And my mom's birthday is the 8th day of the 9th month, right? And then if you do my dad's name in the most simple cipher, 251, my mom's birthday is the 8th day of the 9th month, which is the 251st day of the year. And what's weird is the majority of my life, I've just gone by the name Zach Hubbard. Like when you were in school and you had to write your name on the paper all the time, I would just write Zach Hubbard instead of Zachary Hubbard. It was shorter. You see how it's 94 and 49? I'm born 94 days after my dad's birthday. His birth numerology is 94. And I'm born 49 days before my mother's birthday. You know what I mean? And now you're having this weird crash thing where crash is 49 and 22. Again, Yasid, who I just met, who I'm having all this contact with, sharing all these interesting stories and having all this synchronicity, he gets in his first car crash days later after he's worried about me not crashing my car because I had the weird thing happen at Yale. But he's 49 and it happens on the 22nd, 220 days after his birthday. And then the same day my dad crashes and he hasn't been in a crash since 98. And then again, he crashed on 16/1. And this other gentleman, his name is 161. And God, you know what else? His name is 62. And my mom's name, Donna Jean Hubbard, is 62. Her full name. And then his mom's name is Maria, which is Mary. And then my mom's birthday is the Virgin Mary's birthday. And the Queen died this year on that. And all this stuff's happening at the same time. We got information on the name of the house that sweet lady likes. The name of the house, the model from the builder, it's called the Elizabeth. And you guys would not believe what house number it is, man. I'm just like, what is going on in the world? Like, what does this all mean? So yeah, my brains are just like, again, stuff happens to you in life and it takes time. You gotta let time go on and reflect and see what else comes. But again, they say life is stranger than fiction, you know? Life is stranger than fiction. And I swear to God, as you get older and just stuff happens, you see where that stuff comes from. So, anyway, congrats to the winners. I hope your seed's feeling better. My dad says he took the crash pretty well. I mean, he was in a bus, so that probably helped, but it caught him off guard. But he says so far he feels all right. And for the person who's going to leave the comment, what about 49ers Broncos tonight? What about supporting the work, man? I put out the notes for all these games on Tuesday, so you could have known what I thought since last Tuesday, and we did our live stream last night on Saturday on Patreon. But there's a very familiar pattern in that game that I've taught about a million times. And so if you just take a minute to look, you'll be like, oh, I remember Zach talking about this number with Colorado games, you know? Yeah, so and if you guys missed the video from Gematria Effect News 24, this channel is suspended right now, but it is the last video up on the channel. It says, be great, chase your dreams, 14 and 23. It's got the picture of Malik, the son, and the father, and just told about the amazing synchronicity. And this is before the car crash thing happened. This was last weekend. This was just before we went to look at homes last weekend, because all of a sudden it came on me that we got to sell this house and move to another one. And it sucks right now because it's a time of uncertainty, right? It's like you want your house to be sold before you buy another house, because we're in a time where like you could buy a house high and then your house, that market could drop and then your house sells for way less. Like all this is frustrating right now, but it's also just so interesting how it's all just it's like what is the creator trying to show me right now? I feel like being led to this new area is good though, because I've learned that it has this really good soil. I'm doing research on the area. It really is. It's well known for being a great place to grow food. So I feel like somehow, some way, all this stuff it's meant to be, but it's just so weird to witness. And remember that movie from years ago, Crash? Whole bunch of actors, and I remember even like Ludacris is in that movie, the rapper. But about synchronicity in a car crash. And now I'm like, okay, I had it happen when I was younger with the story I told in the beginning. This stuff this week. By the way, don't forget what happened to me on the way home from Yale. Again, if you guys don't know, on September 12th, we were leaving Yale late. It was probably very early Tuesday, September 13th. It was just raining like crazy, buckets of rain. It was like monsoon rain that wouldn't let up, and you could hardly see anything. And I was just having to drive real slow and look down at the median on the left, and you could see cars had pulled over on the freeway because they didn't want to drive in it. But we were almost all the way back driving through this crazy rain. And as we were almost back to our destination after driving forever in this madness, I was going through the intersection and three people were sleeping in the back seat. And Jeremy White, JHW3D, who up on his channel has the numerology lesson 12 video, he was there in the front, but everybody woke up because it felt like I hit the biggest pothole there ever was. But what it was the manhole cover had been blown off from all the water, and I drove over an open manhole, which blew out the tire. But while we were doing that live stream, I noticed from reading the plaque in town in New Haven, Connecticut, that the town was established in 1684. And I said, well, that's fitting that it was established in the year 84, because notice in the base ciphers, New Haven, Connecticut is 84. Or actually, I take it back. In the most pure cipher, it's 84. In the most pure cipher, it's also 84, New Haven, Connecticut. The intersection where we blew out the tire was on 84th Street. Like, unbelievable. And we weren't even supposed to be on that route. It rerouted us because of the weather. It like told me to get off and take this route. It was a better route. And then we end up on 84th Street and the tire gets blown out. New Haven established in 1684. Remember, that's a big number in this nation, right? Like United States of America is 84. You know, Jesuits, Masonry, the Jesuit order, the Catholic Church, they're all 84. George Orwell's 1984. The Masons, all his number, the Jesuits and the Masons with the shared rituals and rites. It's just, it's like, okay. And again, just it went beyond numbers. Just all the synchronicities that happened on the trip. There were so many. It was just mind blowing. And especially when the mic went out or the megaphone went out way too early on day one and was like, damn, this is going to be we're going to have to get some batteries ASAP. But then we didn't have to because Lincoln Karam just showed up on his bicycle with his big trailer with his awesome audio equipment. As soon as the thing died, which was way too early, I'd never seen it die so fast. Boom, dude showing up with the perfect audio equipment to save the day. you know. But yeah, again, I would just encourage, in case like somehow us coming together, and doing what we did in New York, going against this evil. If that evil, like they say, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If it's like the rubber band coming back at us, because I'll tell you what, a year after I started teaching this work, man, stuff started to get really crazy in my life, and now I look back and I'm like, maybe somehow going against this force, it brings the force back at you. But again, don't let that deter you. I've been showing the whole time, you just got to muscle through it. You just got to keep on going on. But I'll tell you what, like I've always said, there's been nonstop synchronicity since I started this work, but never so much as right now. And it just, like, literally, my mind just wants to pop. I couldn't believe when my dad just called me and told me he got in a crash on the same day. I was just like, no way. No way. And then the one thing he could remember is that the Utah basketball team was on the radio. It's just like, come on, man. This is like out of a movie. Look, Utah, when you run it in reverse, 22, like crash. Anyway, had to share it all. Congrats to the winners. I look forward to your guys' comments later on after the video post. Uh, yeah, again, the organic side makes things interesting. Some people don't want to hear about the organic side at all because then they think it allows for a narrative to be created to dismiss the wrongdoers who are manipulating society. Again, we know it's not an accident. Gavin Newsom's getting up there and saying in 56 days, 56% of California is going to have coronavirus. We know this stuff's not an accident. This is them and their spell casting and their manifesting. But there really is something major to the organic side of the code. And again, I think part of the purpose of us all being here is to try and figure out what's really going on in this world. What is real truth? What is real knowledge? What is really proof that there is a creator, that we're here for a purpose, that creator does communicate. And I'm not saying creator only communicates through numbers and words, but it does seem that the Kabbalists are right. This is a way to understand something more about our existence. I mean, you've heard so many people over the years call in and share similar stories, and yeah, as time goes on, I always have more and more. But man, so many have just come out of the period of this New York trip, and I hope I explained all this clearly enough. And yeah, Frank the Truth Tank in the chat. Again, Richard Quinn, if you're out there, if you come back to the community, I will forgive you again, but I swear to God, you better reflect on the things I'm saying to you, because literally one of the lowlights of the trip was we were all having a discussion in the Buffalo Tops where the shooting happened parking lot on Friday, September 9th. And you guys, I want you to understand that there's no mistake about what's going on. Remember how I went to Buffalo after the shooting and I taught about the significance of 63 in the ritual? They ended up opening the grocery store a span of 63 days later. And again, this is all synced up with the Buffalo Bills' 63rd season. And Buffalo is 63, like racism. And again, we went and taught about the 63 before they reopened the store a span of 63 days from the shooting. But we ended up getting there on September 9th, Friday, the day before we were to be in New York City on September 10th. For the weekend of September 11th, which we did. But we were there in that parking lot on 9/9, and there was a big art exhibit, and the last day of it being there was on 9/9. But the thing about the art exhibit is it was very divisive amongst race. And it's like, come on, this art is not bringing healing and unity. This is like a divisive message, and the exhibit ended on 9/9. Remember when Mr. Garner got choked out by the police officer with the 99 in his back? That's in my first book, how encoded 99 was on that. But again, they have this exhibit in tribute to the top shooting that's really just bringing more racial division. And it ended on 9/9, which just happened to be the day we showed up. And we talked with Grady again. And we got to see the store and the memorial inside the store. And then I had a weird synchronicity taking Michael home. I got to meet his wife and her brother. They all lived together, and their names were Rachel and David. And I thought, how weird. My neighbors growing up, my good friend was David and his sister was Rachel. And another funny story is Rachel had a friend who had a glass eye, and that glass eye girl, she really liked me. And she was kind of cute, but she had a glass eye, and I just couldn't do the whole glass eye thing. And looking back, I feel like I shouldn't have been so discriminatory against The glass eye. So for all the guys out there, if you ever have a cute girl who comes into your life with a glass eye, maybe give her the time of day. I wish I could go back and play my cards differently with that one, but yeah, it's just all man, all yeah. Oh, but I was saying, but we were having this conversation in the Buffalo Tops about the organic side. And Eric was talking about his life, and then Frank the Truth Tank was talking about how this number 61 just keeps coming into his life in so many ways. And then Richard, who's there, who doesn't want to hear about the organic side because he only wants to talk about all the evil being done in the rigging and thinks the organic side detracts from that. I hear his argument, but it's like you got to acknowledge what's really going on by understanding that there is something going on with this that's bigger than just people manipulating it, just something going on in the world. It shows that there's a reason that they're doing this. It shows there's a greater force that they're paying tribute to. And Rich had the camera at the time. It was my camera, but I was letting him hold it and host at the time. But he just stormed off and walked away because he didn't want us talking about the organic side. He didn't want it captured on camera. And it was like, by him storming off, he's missing a really interesting conversation we're having here. And then just all this organic synchronicity comes out of it. And yeah. So anyway, I'm glad I look up at the chat and Frank the Truth Tank's there because he was sharing his big organic story. And yeah, and I know talking about the organic side doesn't help us get the manipulators held accountable, but seriously, at the same time, it does really help us see that there is something more going on, and there's a reason to do this. There's a reason to like manipulate the energy and frequency. It's like that again, it's that hermetic teaching. You're either doing the controlling or you're being controlled. And the way you get to those two different points of being is through knowledge and understanding of these other hermetic teachings. It's like the person who has the knowledge and understanding is the one that gets to be in control, where the other people are being manipulated because they don't understand these things. So again, none of us were educated in these occult schools, or for I shouldn't say none of us. You never know who's watching out there, but for the most part, the average American like yours truly, who grew up in the public school system, we didn't get any teachings about any of this. We never heard of Kabbalah. We never heard of Gematria, geometry and language. I didn't know about sacred geometry. I wish I learned about all this stuff. To me, it would have made everything more interesting. I love numbers. I love shapes. It would have brought it all together for me. I feel cheated that I didn't learn this, and everyone should feel cheated that they didn't learn about this. So, but yeah, it's just again, there is a manipulated side. There's an organic side. At least that's the way I see it. And I just had to get on and share that after, I think I got enough garage sale stuff done today. But I just when I talked to my dad today, I was like, I got to come on and share this, man. Yasid wanted me to share the story right away about what happened to him in the car crash, and I almost did, but I was like, I need to just reflect on this more before I even talk about it. And then my dad tells me today he got in a car crash on the same day. Oh my God. My dad's like the perfect driver too. He's been driving his whole life. He used to drive for a food company. Now he's been driving the bus. He's the kind of guy, well, maybe not a perfect driver. He doesn't get in wrecks and he drives very safe. But the thing I'd say is not perfect is he'll come to hard stops at yellow lights. And it used to drive me nuts. I was like, you could have gone through that. You're giving us whiplash. That's how we're going to get rear-ended. He's like, oh, I don't want to get a ticket. And I'm like, I don't think you're going to get a ticket. The laws, you just got to be in the intersection before it turns red. But my dad will stop hard for the yellow light. Safety first. But man, that's not what happened this time. He'd been stopped at the light for a while, and all of a sudden the guy just came zooming up and never hit the brakes and just crashed into the back of the bus. Did a ton of damage to both. So Twilight Zone for real, you guys. Twilight Zone for real. And maybe that's part of the reason I haven't been able to finish my book this whole time. Or maybe again, the third one is supposed to be the charm, and I just have to observe a few more things in the world before it's ready to go. Maybe it needs an extra special ending about the organic side. I like to conclude all my books with the organic side. You remember what else was weird this year? Remember how on February 7th, the 38th day of the year, the mass shooting was at the Kroger by my house? Well, it wasn't the closest Kroger to me. I had to drive about an hour and a half to get there. But it was good that I went there because we got the cop to admit on camera that he wasn't allowed to go inside. He just had to stay in the parking lot with his troops while the feds ran everything on the inside. And I was like, well, figures. And then supposedly the feds arrested him 11 hours later on the federal interstate. But The weird thing about that was we noticed that the founder of Kroger died on my birthday, the same day, July 21st. Not in the year that I was born, but on the same day. And then that shooting was 201 days after his death anniversary, which was also 201 days after my birthday while I was working real hard on the book about 201. And again, it ended up being a year full of 201 mass shootings. But I also think it was just so weird that shooting ended up being so close to me while I'm working on exposing that number and how it's used in these rituals to take away our rights and liberties. But yeah, again, it's just anyway. Thank you, Kwame. I just looked up at the chat. Kwame says he just signed up for the Patreon. Again, I got to warn you guys, you are signing up later in the month. It does charge $5 a month. The way Patreon works is it charges you the day you sign up, and then it will always charge you on the first of the month unless you click the box to not do monthly. But I do appreciate the people who stay on every month and pledge $1 or $2 or $5. A lot of people who said they used to pledge more, they said for months, Patreon will only let them pledge like maximum of $5. One person told me that it's not letting them pledge more than $1. So I don't know if that's the way they've also gotten funds down, just taking away the people who pledge more. It might be because I pissed off the powers that shouldn't be by getting out there and getting the gatherings to happen this year that have happened. But thank you to everyone who supports the work. You do win more by supporting my work if you follow the knowledge. Again, $5 a month ain't nothing. And I don't want to make you all gamblers, but again, if you take the advice, you'll be coming out more than +5 every month. And hey, there's not a lot of things in the investment world right now that are profiting, but hey, the Gematria community is still off rig sports. And so yeah, if you did sign up for Patreon, you would be billed today and you would be billed again on the first. But what is today? Today is the 25th. So I will have out new football information before the end of the month. I've been putting out the college stuff on Monday and the NFL stuff on Tuesday and improving on it as the week goes on. And as the year goes on, it'll get better because I won't be pounding pavement and driving across the country to New York, and I won't be moving. I anticipate I'll be done with all the moving stuff and have an internet connection by the middle of October. And from that point on, everything should be normal. But I'll still be doing everything to the best of my abilities until then. It's just we'll get back in normal mode, and hopefully, I really do wish the synchronicities would stop around me because there's just a part where it becomes like it's like overwhelming. It's like what am I supposed to do with this? What does this mean? I don't want people who came out to support me to be in bad car accidents, and then my dad's getting whacked at the light. What's the meaning of all this? It's like, oh my god, swear to God, man. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sometimes it feels like you just try to do like such important things, and then all this bad stuff comes to you or people close to you. And yeah, just it's weird watching the Soul Illuminati thing too. Again, the guy who had a big following that really helped bring Gematria to a lot of new young people's minds that I'll be forever grateful for. And now he's having this really weird thing go on with him and the loss of his brother. And yeah, it's something else. So yeah, shorting the market's another way to make yeah, that is another way to make money right now with everything going on. That's something you got to study. But yeah, happy birthday to the people whose birthday it is in the chat. I saw a person leave a comment today. Somebody else is saying happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to everybody whose birthdays are coming up. But yeah, I did have to get on here and share that because my mind, I feel like I got to clean the brain matter off the wall after my dad's phone call. It's just like, no way. Yasid called me about his bad accident, and then my dad gets hit on the same day after just praising Yasid as a father and then talking about, yeah, just like how my dad and I have been working on our relationship. I was talking about all that in the video last week. How we didn't get along when we were younger, but we've been working on it. It's just, it's something else. It's something else. I bet when I get off this live stream, my mom calls me and tells me her lawnmower guy messed up the lawn again. I'll be like, Mom, do you ever learn? Come on. Come on. I'm just going to get mad that I said that. But anyway, we'll leave it there for now. Oh, my dad was also laughing because he was saying that when the lady rear-ended him in 98, he said the lady called to apologize, but my mom got on the phone and just grilled her about what a horrible human being she was. And when I heard that, I just had to laugh. I was like, "That is who my mom is." The lady called to apologize, and my mom got on the phone and just screamed and cussed her out. It's like, God, she probably didn't mean to run into my dad. I mean, my mom, man, she just ah. Hey, the only time I okay, I gotta tell you one other weird thing that happened to me in my life in a car accident. When I was a child, I remember my mom really wanted me to learn to ski because she didn't know how to ski. So she used to send me on a bus. I remember the first day I didn't want to get on the bus. I was a little kid. I was crying. She wanted me to go up and take ski lessons. Just I was probably like 6 years old to send me up on the bus with everybody else to the mountain to learn how to ski. She couldn't afford to go up there herself. She probably had to work that day. But anyway, I remember coming back that day and getting picked up at the bus stop, and I was real happy. But one of those weeks, my mom, instead of putting me on the bus, she drove me up there. And on the way back, like, you know how sometimes when you're driving along a cliff, there'll be a sign that shows like rocks fall here? Rocks came falling down the road and smashed our vehicle and disabled our vehicle. Driving on the mountainous roads, getting hit by a big boulder. And I mean, I'm sure other people have that story, but it's like, God, how many people does that happen to? That just seemed like a weird thing. I remember my dad was mad because he had to drive all the way from Portland up to the mountain to come get us. He was thinking in his head if he was driving, he would have avoided the rocks. But yeah, it's just life is weird, man. So from the Twilight Zone, signing off. Again, thanks again for listening, True Seekers. I look forward to anyone who wants to share their story about the organic side of the code. Maybe this week on TFR, if you can tell an organic story and keep it to, try to do 4 minutes just so we get through a bunch of calls. The main points of the story, the mind-blowing details. Yeah, it might be cool just to think more about the organic side. So, and then there's somebody who's annoying in the community who's always saying, Zach never talks about the organic side. It's like, dude, I invented the term organic side. I don't think anybody else was referring to it that way before I started talking about it. And I've been talking about it for a lot of years. It's just that hasn't been the focus of the work, but it's always been something I bring up to remind that there is something more going on. And after what we just did in New York, I just never seen so many synchronicities and numbers and weirdness. And again, I think I think it's a reminder there it is a spiritual battle, and it's like words. It's that Nas thing. What did he say in the song Patience? Who made up words? Who made up numbers? And what kind of spell is mankind under? Something going on, man. Focus on the father. Something happens with the fathers. Focus on the mom and the lawnmower. All of a sudden, the lawnmower doesn't work out of nowhere. It's just ah. And again, I was talking ego too, and the name of that lawnmower is the ego. Oh my goodness. So anyway, I still got to reflect on all of it. It might take several years of reflection just thinking about this moment until I have the moment of clarity. But again, for all the people who came out to New York, just be safe, you guys. It reminds me also that Chris, who came out to Oklahoma City earlier this year, and who came out to New York again with us, the bowling expert, he got in a weird car accident on the way home from Oklahoma City. So. I got to just with regard to the most simple ciphers and this stuff happening on the 22nd. I got to close out with one more. The most simple cipher. You guys know what car equals, right? Car's got that 22. This weird synchronicity on the 22nd with people driving after I had the weird car thing. Again, that's why it's wild because I had the weird card thing. Yasid's calling me the whole way back to make sure I'm safe. I talked to him more than anybody. And then he has the weird car thing. On the same day, my dad has the weird car thing on the 22nd. So like this guy, I just hate how I always have people trolling and writing things that are just false. I just look up at the chat. So a guy named Zeb writes, Zach has had many conspiracies about other teachers he worked with being Jesuits. Let me know if has anyone ever heard me talk about other teachers I worked with being Jesuits? I've never said that in my life. Never said that in my life. Totally false statement. Zach was later fired for misinformation, but still continues today to talk about his conspiracies on the internet. I've never been fired from any teaching job. So another false statement. I get annoyed about this, you guys, because I don't think you understand how ruthless the trolling is of me, how my Patreon's super trolled, how my blogs have always been super trolled. I mean, for like 8 years straight, just nonstop trolls writing lies about me, just stuff like that that's never been said, just totally false allegations to try and. But it's just like anytime I post something about congrats to the winners, there's always 10 comments about Zach never called that. Zach didn't say anything about that game, and they're all lies. I mean, if anybody watched my live stream or read the notes, I was super adamant about Miami beating Buffalo and Rodgers beating Brady. How many comments were left in the video that I already deleted right away that Zach never liked Miami, Zach liked Buffalo this week? That's just totally false. But that's how it is, you guys. It's annoying to constantly be trolled because people do read comments. And when you go in the comment section and it's majority trolls, because Google's filtering out real people's comments and only the troll comments are making it through because there is a real there's where a real conspiracy is. A real conspiracy to silence me, to cut off my funding, to ban my books, to have people waiting for me in Seattle on the corners to drown me out with Katy Perry. Again, all this stuff's real. The car crashing through my house, that did happen for real on my 33rd birthday. It was a really weird story. Is it the Matrix or was it something more sinister? Why couldn't they get the police report out until days later at the 33rd minute of the day? I mean, but I just get tired of all the people just always writing false stuff and making videos about me that are completely false. There's nobody else in the truth community that has more people harassing them and writing and making false statements about anybody. And again, High Impact Flicks, who has a 500,000 subscribers, can get away with supposedly raising money from a dying niece halfway across the country for cancer and raise nearly $40,000 and then stop talking about it and then upload a video about the expensive remodel he's doing on his house at the same time. And nobody makes a video like, did High Impact Flicks just steal $40,000 from his subscribers to remodel his house? Can you imagine if I did the same thing? There would have been a million videos about it. I would never do that, but that's the point. I'm not doing stuff like that, but people are constantly attacking me. Meanwhile, you have real criminals and frauds in the truth community ripping people off, from Richie from Boston to maybe High Impact Flicks to the scariest movie ever, and nobody's saying anything about them, and they have way more following. So again, I want people to evaluate all these things. The way I'm relentlessly attacked and lied about, nonstop trolls and losers writing fake things that have never been said by me. God, I mean, show anywhere where I ever talked about Jesuit teachers. Bullshit. God. I will tell you a weird story, though. Here's a weird thing that happened. Seattle University, which is a Jesuit school, I was taking jujitsu lessons there in my early 20s, and it didn't last that long because the first time I got my first belt, the instructor, when he was congratulating me, he went to do a handhold on me and busted my hand. And again, my hand was all swelled up for weeks. It was like the least active I ever was because I had to wait for my hand to heal. I was still running and doing what I could with my left side, but my right side was disabled for like 6 weeks. It was super annoying. I was like, God, I'm paying for these lessons, and this guy busts my hand. And honestly, what I think it was about, I had a girlfriend back then, but there was another girl in that class who was cute, and she liked to partner with me, like when we do the holds and throws. And I've always been loyal to my girlfriends. I wasn't being anything romantic, but I think it was something about the instructor saw that maybe that girl had a little thing for me, and I think that's why he busted my hand in front of her. But that did happen at a Jesuit university, but I wasn't even thinking like that back then. Didn't even dawn on me really like that it was a Jesuit school. That's just where the jujitsu lessons were in Capitol Hill that you could pay for. They weren't expensive. You didn't have to be a student. It's just where they were. But that is where it happened when I look back. So, but yeah, and I don't even know if I told that story before. But I don't know if the person leaving that comment, if I ever told that story, that's the only thing that even remotely close to what they just said could be true. But again, that's a real story. And that didn't have anything to do with teaching. So, but you know what? With regards to that story, shout out to Yasid, who just got hit in the car crash. Yasid is a martial artist. He's thinking about trying to get his money together and open up a dojo, and at a low rate for all the people in New York that came out for the Truth Seeker, start getting the Truth Seekers to come out to the dojo, work on martial arts, self-defense, self-improvement together, and hopefully through the community support the dojo. So if Yasid does start that, I hope the New York Truth Seekers would support his dojo and go out there and have night together. Wouldn't that be cool? Talking about what's going on in the world, learning self-defense, learning some skills to protect yourself. I mean, that stuff is valuable to know. So Yasid is thinking about doing that. I told him I hope it happens. We got that could be the future of building the community. Maybe gematria is not the thing that appeals to enough people, but learning how to, you know, understand how we're being manipulated, understanding more about ourselves, health, nutrition, self defense. If we created like some school, some community that's based in truth, knowledge, and self improvement, and just opened up in big cities like spots and found a guy like you see in New York to run it, who has the skills and the willingness. I mean, wouldn't that be cool if in 10 major cities in the US there was something like that? And, a few times a year, the people who are part of those 10 cities were coming out to do something bigger in the world, whether it's 9/11 on the anniversary in New York. Anyway, I'm getting off into other tangents, but I did remember that Yasid talked to me about that, how he was thinking about creating the Truth Seeker Dojo. And I thought that idea was really cool. So, um, it looks like a lot of people in the chat looking up like that idea. And yeah, shout out to Steven who came out from Cleveland and New York and who pounded pavement and held the sign and was a big contributor. First man out in Cleveland. He's saying that was a horrible instructor that busted my hand. Yeah, and to this day, I don't know if it was an accident because a part of it just felt like he didn't have a reason to not like me, man. I was super humble in there because martial arts and all that was new to me. I was able to do the stuff, but it was a new thing to me. I had never done martial arts in my life, and usually when you start doing things when you're a younger age, it's a new thing when you're learning all these holds and how to throw people, and you never done it before. But it was fun until he busted my hand, and then I just never went back. I think you can understand why. So, anyhow, we'll leave it there for now. And yeah, I look forward to the next TFR. I would like to hear about people's organic side stories. And yeah, again, I mean, life is stranger than fiction. I don't know what else to say. Appreciate all you guys. Have a great rest of your night. And until next time, Truth Seeker.